Alright, so those of you who may have grown up in the 90s with me, this is a big one. Nirvana bassist Krist Novoselic praises Trump's speech that threatened to use military against protesters. Now already there's some framing issues here with the word threatened, but former Nirvana bassist Krist Novoselic set his Facebook to private and deleted his Twitter after praise for Donald Trump's law and order speech caused a mix of uproar and disappointment among fans and fellow musicians. Well, if you cherry pick your uproar and outrage, yes, you can find it. Mr. Trump warned on Monday that he would mobilize all available federal resources, civilian and military, to stop the rioting and looting following the death of George Floyd. Novoselic agreed that the president should not be sending troops into the state, but his tone was strong and direct. So, immediately you can see that the headline is deliberately misleading. Now, if you think the utopia is going to be built on a web of lies, good on you, but that's a horrible way to start building the perfect world, is to misrepresent and lie about somebody. Just saying. So, here you have Novoselic's statement. Wow. I know many of you can't stand him. However, Trump knocked it out of the park with this speech, the musician wrote on Facebook. I have been watching the images in the media and thinking about how polarized our country is. I mean, even wearing medical masks in public can be seen as a political statement. The violence, and not the protests, appear as a leftist insurrection. Chris continues. Most Americans want peace in their communities, and President Trump spoke to this desire. Never mind the legal details that few understand, Trump said he would stop the violence, and this speaks to many. You know, it's so funny. Like, here is the man's honest opinion, the man's well-reasoned opinion. He's thoughtful, he's clear, he's reasonable, and people jump on him for it. Why? Because he would not be a conformist. Think about that. That's how crazy the world is. People are jumping on, well, Dave Grohl went and founded the Foo Fighters, so he's kind of out of the picture, and Kurt is no longer with us. So Novoselic is really the voice of Nirvana today. He's the last remaining speaking voice for the band. And the fact that people are jumping all over him because he won't be a conformist. People are mad Nirvana won't be conformist. Boy, where have I seen that movie before? So while it appears Novoselic set his Facebook profile to private, where the message was originally posted, screen grabs have been circulating on Twitter. Fans were quick to criticize his take, despite him having been a supporter of the peaceful protests and Black Lives Matter. So, you know, he was on the side of people that were justifiably upset. He was on the side of Black Lives Matter, which, you know, that's his right. But it wasn't enough, you know. The goalposts are continuously moving. It's not enough to be 70% left or 80% left or even 90% left. They're upset at him, these cherry-picked outrage people that are just trying to probably get some attention off Chris's actual achievements and actual fame. It's that he's not 100% on board. It's that he's not 100% a conformist that they're mad at. He will not conform. Well, that's what the guy is known for. He's not a conformist. I've seen him on Reason TV, and he gave a very nuanced and subtle and kind of detailed description of his political leanings and his thoughts. And like, the guy's trying. He's a man trying to discover truth. And how blindly arrogant does somebody have to be to think they get 100% of the truth correct 100% of the time, the first time through? I mean, we all want to get to the bottom of things here. This is the challenge put before us all. But truth has no value to these leftists engaged in an insurrection right now. Only conformity to the narrative. Very interesting, right? So, Chris goes on to make this other horrible statement. People, go home now and let's build our future. Oh man, controversial. There is a lot of work to do. And then I like this. Good night. Had enough of this social media outrage generator / echo chamber, a network run by corporations and capitalism, he said on his Twitter page, which appears to have been deleted. He also says, hug your family, be kind to your neighbors, and always remember Black Lives Matter. And yes, I get the irony of him criticizing capitalism when it's been very good to him. And you can see here a tweet. Fellow bass player Mike Mills of REM simply tweeted, "Oh, Krist, no, ... So think about that. What do you mean, oh no? Well, because Mike Mills realized that by disagreeing even 1% with the narrative, Krist has ripped up his I'm a celebrity card. He is now non-conforming. And think about, the guy's a smart guy. He knew what he was doing. He didn't have to wade into this. But this took moral courage. It really did, because look, he's a celebrity, he's rich, he's beloved. All he had to do was take the side of the left. All he had to do was take the knee, kiss the ring, and agree with everything the mainstream now says. Lockstep, 100%, and he would have puff pieces written about him the rest of his life. He could be on magazine covers, and, slime media writers like the guy of this article that probably are going to slam him forever now would be writing these glowing pieces about how thoughtful and articulate he was. He knew he was giving that up. He was giving it up because he is doing what he thinks is the right thing. That is the definition of courage. Now, this last bit here, Nirvana became an international sensation at the head of the grunge scene in the early 90s. Now, I don't know, maybe a lot of the younger folks don't remember the early 90s, but back in those days, Krist Novoselic and the band, they were pro-LGBT, and they were also critics of the Klan. At a time when the Klan actually had some force left behind it. They still had like this last cultural tailwind from the distant past. They were still dangerous. Not this boogeyman you guys hold up while you're LARPing as heroes. The man was demonstrating moral courage back in the early 90s when a lot of you probably weren't even born, and you certainly weren't criticizing a powerful, dangerous organization on the world stage. Well, he was. The man has been an exemplar of moral courage for the past 30 years. And you think maybe you're the one that's wrong now, and maybe he's getting it right, because he's got a long history of getting things right. Krist Novoselic has a lot of things of getting things right that the mainstream didn't understand. And it happens now that the establishment is right. It happens now that the corporate news media is right and Krist is wrong. Well, that's not how it played out in the 90s. Are you really that sure that's how it's playing out now? The man had moral courage back then by standing up to the Klan. And let me tell you, I was in high school in the late 90s. And we had a girl appeared in school in the middle of the year. This was 97, 98 time frame. And she'd moved from Georgia. Talking to her, getting to know her. And then the teacher puts on we had VHS in those days. A VHS he had recorded, I forget the show, Dateline or something like that. But it's this Dateline show about this girl, the new girl in class, who was chased out of her home by the Klan. They would follow her home from school. They would drive by her house all night long. Like they were terrorizing this young girl because she was half black. And for whatever reason, her family got on the wrong end of the wrong people down there. And she had to flee all the way up to the Pacific Northwest here. Okay? So this is what Krist Novoselic was standing up against. This is what he was actively on the world stage opposing. Okay? The guy had his own skin on the line. He's got a pretty darn good record. And as for the gay rights issue, whatever you think of the lifestyle, I don't think these people should be criminals. And lots of people are channeling the spirit of Kurt Cobain, like they know what he thinks. They have some sort of ESP or something. Well, you don't. And You know what else Donald Trump has done? He's been working to decriminalize homosexuality worldwide. And I can't read his mind, but I'm pretty sure Kurt would have thought that was a good thing. But you know who did know him? Krist Novoselic knew him. And so maybe that's the person we should turn to when we're thinking, how would Kurt see this? You know, everyone in the media, everyone in entertainment, they all just want everyone else to say Orange Man bad. Even when Orange Man does things that they would consider tremendous. Obama didn't even have this kind of moral courage. Okay? So maybe because this revolution, this socialist, communist, whatever uprising you want to call it, is based on lying to one another. And everybody's got to hold hands and agree real hard. 100% Orange Man bad. And everything he's done is bad, even if he's trying to save human life across the globe for people that you think that you're fighting for. And he's not the only guy from the 90s that's showing some moral courage. Billy Corgan, the lead singer from Smashing Pumpkins, returns to InfoWars to, quote, demolish social justice warrior brainwashing. This was on April 19, 2016. They picked the most horrible photo they can possibly find where he's looks like he's swallowing mouthwash. He's a nice-looking guy. He's a good guy. There's no reason, again, this is another way of misrepresenting him. Like, we can take any person and show the weirdest face they've ever made on camera to mock them. Like, you're starting out your utopia basing it on a web of lies. It's not going to happen. So, Corgan has criticized the social justice mob mentality, and that's what we're seeing as a mob, right? A mob that's 100% conformist, and these guys, Billy Corgan and Krist Novoselic, are not conformists. They're showing moral courage. So, when the Smashing Pumpkins leader appeared on InfoWars, he said he was there to demolish the social justice brainwashing. And Billy Corgan himself agreed and has compared liberals and social justice warriors to a cult and the KKK. This is the analogy that Billy Corgan made. If we could transport back to a time where racism was accepted, it was institutionalized, okay? If you could go back to Selma, 1932, and the Klan member spitting in some person of color's face, don't you think that guy thought he was right too? Okay. So how is this any different? So I'm at the very least encouraged that a couple of the role models I had as a teenager growing up, they thought for themselves back then, and they're thinking for themselves now. You want to know how to know if you're in a cult? It's when somebody else gets to do your thinking for you. When your thoughts, feelings, and opinions are manufactured for you by someone else, by somewhere else out there. Because you know what, a thinker is going to push the boundaries. A thinker is going to push the limits. A thinker is sometimes going to get things wrong, and then they're going to circle back around and correct it. And what does it say about the state of our society today when a man can't even think for himself?